Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Peizayin. We begin in the middle of the Amid, where we continue the halacha, the next Mishnah, which continues on the theme of our opening Mishnah of the Chamisha Dvarim, that is chayiv when a person injures another person, and the Mishnah contrasts that with the injuries of a shiur that doesn't have these Chamisha Dvarim. Shiur is caused by the Kazakh and the Chesed, turned them Daf Yomi, turns to the Zav, Shbis Chus, Vachim Neisol, Neisol, that entire world. So we're discussing today's Daf are Chavalas Adam B'Shar, the different injuries between a person versus a shiur. If someone injures a slave, the well-known Talmudic principle of that you don't get you only get the bigger the two punishments. Of regarding someone who injures his father, and the difference of asma and chabura. If you made a wound, which in the blood gets removed, lo asma chabura. If you didn't make a wound, if someone inflicts an injury to someone, he's only chayv karis misa b'dei shemaim, but not misa b'dei adam. On the other hand, chayv misa. If someone does chavala, it's one of the lamatas malachas. He's chayv misa, and then he wouldn't be chayv for the tashlumin. If someone injures his children, smuch mashachanai. It depends if they're let's say relying on his table, meaning if they eat by him. And kapid the halacha if the father is particular about the monetary compensation that he would like. So begin the current daf Peizayin, in the middle of the Amid. Says the Mishnah. This is the stringency that applies to an Adam Mazik versus a Shur HaMazik, as follows. Sha'adam, when the person injures a person, Misham has to pay nezek, the damage, the tsar, the pain, the reaper, the deductible, sebis, loss of work, baishas, and the shame, and Misham may vladis. If let's say he injures a pregnant woman and she miscarries, he has to pay for that compensation. The Shur, however, no, Ein Misham el nezek, only pays for the damages, as we said in the second paragraph of Rava Merav. It says in the pasuk ish ba'amisai, when the person does it in his friend, and not shur ba'amisai. So that's the chamisha dvarim is only by a person, and also patim mei v'ladis, the ox is exempt for having miscarried the fetuses, as the Gemara says in Perek Shosh and Agach Dal Dehei and Ben Bezim and Av. It says anoshim in the pasuk and not shvarim. So that's the discrepancy between the Adam Mazik and the Shur HaMazik. Now continues the Mishnah. Makas aves imay. If someone injures his father and his mother, and we quoted this on the previous daf, but he didn't inflict a wound. Now, the halacha makav emir, like we said, is not chayav until you make a chabur, as the Gemara says in Sanhedrin Pehem and Beis. Or let's say this, the next case, someone injures his friend on Yom Kippur, chayav in the chamisha dvarim, because there's no chiv misa, it's best over here to exempt you. Someone injures a Jewish slave, he's liable for all the chamisha dvarim, chutz min hasheves, except for the lack of work, meaning if it's his own slave, obviously not compensating him the loss of work, if it's your own slave that you're losing work from. Let's say someone injures someone else's non-Jewish slave. It's chai for all the chamisha dvarim, and that obviously goes to that master. Yudam says, no, not true. Slaves don't have shame, and therefore you wouldn't compensate that guy's master for the shame. Now, chesed v'katan, very interesting. Pegiyas and ra. It's the encounter you have with these three individuals, like stay away. It's not a good encounter. Why? Because if you injure them, you're liable. But if they injure others, they're exempt. Now, so too, meaning because they don't have any liability, they have no das. But if you embarrass them, yeah, if you injure them, you can be liable to them. However, so too a slave and a woman, slightly different, but the encounter with them is also bad because if you injure a woman or a slave, you chayiv. If they injure others, they're going to be potter, like Rashi explains. They don't have anything to pay. A woman, everything she has is owned by her husband. A slave, everything he owns is owned by the master. But here it's different. They do have to pay at a later point in time. If the woman ends up getting divorced, or the slave ends up getting freed, and now they have assets, then they do have to pay because, as Rashi explains, of course they were always liable. It's just they didn't have what to pay because nichtim look of isha is meshubah to her husband for peiris and for yerusha, and obviously Abed kamach going to become a rabbi. But when they do have later on, then they will be liable. Now the Mishnah says the flip side of the previous cases. If someone injures his father or his mother, and he creates a wound, or injures a friend on Shabbos, then you're exempt from all the monetary liabilities. Why? Because he's going to get prosecuted for his life, and that we know you're not chayiv for both of them. And so too, if someone injures his own Eved Kanani, Patim is exempt from them all because again it's his own Eved Kanani and all that monetary compensation is his anyway, so he's going to be exempt. Now, relating back to the halacha of the Mishnah, the Gemara brings the following question: Rabbi Lazar asked from Rab, if someone injures a young daughter of someone else, the compensation for the injury, who does it go to? Because like Rashi explains, if she's an adult, of course it goes to her. But she's a little girl, 6-year-old girl, let's say, and he injures her. Who does it go to? So what's the question? Like Gemara explains. Do we say that since the Torah gives the benefits of the young girl to her father, like the part like Torah says, the Torah says that what does it mean when she's in her youth in her father's household? So the drasha tells us that all shvach neurim, all the benefits that she gets when she's a girl goes to her father, even her kesef kedushin. Let's say someone's getting a betrothing her when she's a 6-year-old girl, that goes to the father. Okay, so then the damages will also go to the father. My time, what's the reason? Because he's diminishing her value, and that's rightfully his. Maybe no. The Torah gives him all the shvach of her youth. Why? Because the because if he wants to give her over for marriage, let's say, so someone who's smitten with boils, Matzi Master, he could give her over, like the Torah says in the Dvarim Chabez, is beating the Satalish Hazeh. Oh, the Torah believes the father that he married off his daughter to someone else. Obviously, he could give her over to whoever he wants to. So therefore, the Kesef of Kedushin also goes to the father. But regarding injury, you don't have the svara. Because keeping the boy mischavel, you say the svara is, why does he get all these other shvach? Because if he wanted to, he could have done it, which he could have married her off. So all that goes to him. But injury, if he would have wanted to injure her, he can't injure her. Like Rashi says as Amud Beis, a person is not allowed to injure his daughter because she's a Jewish woman, and he's violating what's called lo yosef ben yosef. So you're not hit your child because it's lo yosef ben yosef, because the Torah says you're not allowed to hit another person. It's actually in the context of Lamates Malkus. When you're hitting, you can't add on to the hits. So that's the source. You're not allowed to hit another Jew. So your child, your 4-year-old daughter, is the same thing. So the so maybe the Torah didn't acquire for him the rights to the injury. So that's the Gemara's question: who gets this chavala of this young girl? So as Getin Tamid Beis, Amalei said to him, "You're right. The Torah only merited to the father. Only the profits that she has as a young girl, but more than that, the chavala. You're right that the father does not get." Now, Esvei, the Gemara, however, asks on Rav from our Mishnah. We said in the Mishnah, if someone injures the Eved Ivri, Chay B'kulan. So he's liable for all the things, except for like loss of work, because it's not true when it's his own Eved Ivri. Now, unlike, let's say it's someone else's Eved, then we said, oh, the Shevis goes to that guy's master. But one thing we see is that when it's his own Eved Ivri, that he's going to be potter because, anyways, the handiwork goes to him. Seiroso, since his daughter, her handiwork goes to him, so he should take at least her Shevis. Oh, that's typical on Rav. He said the Torah was not mazaka to the father, only shvach and bavad. But you see, even Chavalas, at least on regards to Shevis, Torah was mazaka to him, as you see the svar from my Mishnah. So my Bai says, yeah, Moyi Rav b'Shevis. It's true. Rav agrees by Shevis that you give it to the father. The Ma'asideh, Achas Bagris, because you're right, her handiwork until when she becomes an adult, Davuahava is her father's. You're right, that's the exception, but Rav was going on all the other things. The Gemara says, however, the Gemara continues asking on Rav from the following brisa. If someone injures his son, now the Torah was not mazaka a father and his son anything. It was only by a daughter. So if someone injures his son, Gadol, if he's an adult, he has to pay his son right away for the injuries. If it's minor son and he injures him, Yasale Segula. We'll explain shortly what a Segula is, but he should make some type of a CD, some type of an account to compensate his son for having injured him. Now, however, if someone injures his minor daughter, Patri is exempt. Not only that, if others injure her, they have to give it to the father. Give it to the father? He's saying, not only is he Patri, because of course he's Patri, because even someone else injured, he gets it. That's why you said the father doesn't get it. No, it's the Shevis that the father is getting. That's the one case Rav agrees to. Now, once we introduce the brisa, the Gemara goes back to explain the brisa, this classic Talmudic style. We were using it to ask on Rav in the halacha bita ketana, but now we're going to ask on the brisa itself. The brisa says, we said, regarding his adult son, if he injures his son, he gets in a fight with his 16-year-old, and they're having this brawl, and he beats him up, so yitlam biyad. So he has to give him right away to pay him out, he takes out of his wallet. Imagine you see the father pulling out. He says, okay, how much do I owe you? And he gives him like $1,000. Okay. But this seems to be contradicted in the following brisa. The brisa says, someone injures someone else's sons and daughters. They're away in some hotel for Pesach, and there's the guy's that family next table. You know that family. So he gives the guy, knocks him over. So Gedalim, if they're adults, he has to pay him out right away. Ketanim, minors, Yaslam Segula, okay, he has to put out some bank account for them. Yes, as we'll see shortly what a Segula is. But Babanim Noisim Shalai, his own kids, Pater, is exempt. I thought you said your own kids, you're chayiv for your sons, whether adult or minors. So why are you saying Pater? Some they said, no, it's not difficulty. Actually depends. Why? Because like Kasha, it's not difficulty. Kan, the second brisa that's saying that your Pater is talking about Kishes Mucham al Shulchanai, when they are dependents, they eat from his table. Okay, so then I have the rights to at least slap you up a little bit. Kan, the first brisa is Kishein Mucham al Shulchanai, when they're not dependent on him. You have no right to touch your children then. Meaning you never have a right, but I'm saying regarding the monetary compensation is that then you will have to pay them the value. Okay, says Igmar, wait a second, not so simple. Because b'maya kimtu l'kamaisa, how you explain the first brisa? You tell me that the reason why the father is going to be chayiv for his own sons is b'shein smuchon al shulchan, because they're not dependents. And the son says, I don't need you, I babysit, I whatever, I do my own thing, I work in camp, and you lay your finger on me, you're going to pay for it. Okay. It's Kishain Smuchan al Shulchan. If that's the case, but look at the save of that brisa. The brisa says, someone injures his young daughter, he's going to be exempt. But not only that, said the brisa, if others injured her, you have to give it to the father. Wait a second. Didn't you tell me that this brisa is talking about where the children are not dependents? This young daughter who's 8, she babysits, she does art classes, she does Sunday clubs, she does all these different things. She doesn't take a cent from the father. Then she go to her to buy mezainik because she needs food. You told me she's not dependent on the father. Because even according to the one who holds Yochel Rav Lemele Eved, which is a machlekes. But there is an opinion that holds that a master could tell a slave, Asay imi ben yizanach, I want you to do the work with me, and I'm still not feeding you, which machlekes Masechtas is getting in the second parak. When do we say that Rebbe Kanani? That's only by a non-Jewish slave. The Amalek could tell him, yeah, I want you to work the entire day, and at night, you go around and go around by the doors or go around town and go and find something to eat. That's only by Evet Kanani. But a Jewish slave that says about the because it's good for him with you, which means it's good for him when he eats, good for him when he drinks, that you have to give him just as well of the food and drink. Like lie that you can't do that. All the more so by daughter. Of course you can't just. How's this possible that the father is going to take it when she needs it for her mezainis? Says the Gemara, it's not difficult. Amar Rava Bereid Rav Ula, which he's in Perek Narish in the spot that I've Megillah Ben Aleph, says you're right. We're talking about what's in excess of her own food. And he's talking about in a different context. Here we also need that this that we're saying is going to the father. What's going to the father? I thought she needs mezainis. The excess is what's going to the father, but what's not, you're right, would go to the daughter. Okay, that's not difficult. But now let's go to the other brisa. But my kim to labasraisa. How do you explain the second brisa? You told me that's besmuchin al shulchanai. You told me that it's when they are dependents. So that's why we said that, okay, that's why you're going to be exempt for injuring your own children, because they're dependents. If that's the case, so regarding the case of injuring someone else's children, you told me, Gedalim, that if they're adults, you have to pay them out right away. But if they're minors, you give a segula. Says Gemara, why am I? You tell me that they're dependents. There's his own children and then someone else's children. But we're talking about when the children are dependents. So Lavim Boy Lemesve, you should give it to the father. What's the difference when he injures his own children? He's exempt from Shabbos because they're dependents. When you injure someone else's children, you should give it to that father because they're his dependents. So why are you saying you give it to the children? So Amri, they said, no. The Gemara makes a chiluk, a differentiation. Kiko kapid, when is a father particular? The midid kachaser. When he's going to lose out money. For example, let's say that he injured his own child. We're telling him, go pay to your child. He said, no. Then my dependents. What do you think? I pay for everything. What do you think I'm getting upset for? I spend on this and I spend on that and I give this. I spend for camp. It's all this thing. So yeah, I knock out and I knock him a little bit. I'm not paying. But somebody came from somewhere else. A neighbor went in shul in Ezra's Nub. They got in a fight in a scuffle, and then his kid chopped a bang, like cup it. Then he's not particular about his son getting that. So although his son is a dependent, he could forgive when he has to pay out himself. No, he's not forgetting that. Right? Someone else injured his son, he could forgive that. Yeah, that's where it's going to go, even though they're dependents to the kid. Says, really? Iva Metzia, when his son finds something, his son finds some type of a precious item. But that's coming from somewhere else. It's not a loss of the father's own money, and yet and yet the Mishnah teaches in Shnai Meichs and Bamitzid Beis and Beis, if his son or daughter finds when they're a minor a lost object, it goes to the father. And we explained over there, even if it's a gadol of samach al shulchanai, even if it's an adult child, but if it's a dependent, he's considered as a katan, and it goes to the father. So why are we saying over here that since it came from Alma, that it's going to go to the child? They said, no, it depends. What's the difference? Because Rav Chadika Aslam Alma, when there's a profit that's coming from somewhere else, the child didn't have any personal physical pain associated with it. It just came along a Rolex that he found somewhere when they were on a midwinter break, and he found some Rolex. So the father's particular. He said, of course it goes to me. I pay for everything. I pay for your sneakers. I pay for your backpack. I pay for everything. Yes, it goes to me. But if the child got injured, they were skating and somebody knocked him down, this lutzar de gufayu, where the child had physical pain. And also it's coming from somewhere else. The father doesn't have to pay it out. He's not particular. And then, yes, that's why it's going to go to the child. So the Gemara says, wait, the Gemara's not done yet with the cheshbon. But Vahasam, the first brisa, the islutzar the gufa, where there is physical pain. Is coming from somewhere else. And still we see the father is particular house of the brisa where they taught. Not only this, the brisa, but even if others injure her, we said chayavim litin lavia, that you still have to give it to the father. Why? Why does it have to go to the father? Even if she's a dependent, but there's physical pain, and it's coming from somewhere else. So why is the father getting it? They said, the first price, the husband over there, the gaver kapdano. That person, actually, that was not dependence. But still, we said, doesn't make a difference, even if it's not. We said that the father's makbid, because it's extra thing and it doesn't need for Hamazainus. There, Gaver Kapdanu, there he's Bechlal, a very a begrudging person. Because we see that they're not dependents. So yes, such a father is makbid, even something that's coming from somewhere else. And therefore the father's going to get it. In the second brisa, the Lav Gaver Kapdanu, who is not a begrudging person, as we find out he supports his children. When is he particular? Is only something that he would have to spend, be losing. But someone's coming from somewhere else, he would not be makbid. So again, depends on the personality. Where we see he's a gaver kapdana, that he's not supporting his children. So then, what's rightfully coming to him, he would be makbid, even if it's a chavala, that's aslam alma that he's going to get from his minor daughter. Now the Gemara just clarifies my segula. We said before, when it's a minor child, you give a segula. So Rav Chizam says sefer Torah. Actually, write a sefer Torah for that child, so he has that forever. So it's not something he's going to spend on. And Rabbi Hunam says diklu da'achamei tamri. No, it's a palm tree that you eat dates from. So again, it will stay, and the child will be able to get the dividends when later on in life. And she says like Rav also that the Torah did not merit for the father only the profits of when the girl is young, but not the monetary value of the injuries of the daughter. That does not go to the father. He says actually I feel a petzia. He says even just a petzia, which is just a bang, not a chavala. So he's like a daidach. What do you mean? His only question was where at least you're diminishing the value of the girl. So that's why he wanted to know. Maybe it goes to the father. But if the girl just gets a bang where he's not diminishing the value, of course he didn't have a question. Of course it's not going to go to the father. He says no. For now, she got a bang in her face, and it caused her. So although it's not a chabura, it caused her value to go down because the father was able to sell her, and now that's causing depreciation. And that's why he's saying that even the petzia is going to be going to the father. I think at any time, post this.